Hello, my name is Jim Demarest, and I would like to introduce you to creating an operational reference store in Informatica MDM version 9.7. This is the first release that supports multiple DBMSs, including Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, and DB2. Now, I do want to show you first in this VM, we are running version 9.7. If I look over here in the Hub console, go to Enterprise Manager, you'll see this VM was first created with 9.6.1 and upgraded to version 9.7. As we go through the process, you'll see a couple of directories and a couple of names set to 9.6.1, but I did want to confirm we are running 9.7. So first we need to jump out to the Informatica MDM installed directory. In this case, it's in C Infa MDM. There's our first reference to 9.6.1, although as I showed you, we are running 9.7. And then in the server directory is a bin directory. And what we're looking for is sipant.bat. This is what we'll use to execute our two commands to create the ORS. So from here, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, do a right mouse button, so that we can open a command window in this directory. So again, we're going to do sipant, and our first command is create ORS. All right, so as we said, we talked about the three supported DBMSs. In this particular VM, I have Oracle installed. Now, when you see a value in these brackets, that is the default value. And if you want to stick with the default, we can just hit the Enter key. So again, we're going to stick with Oracle. We're going to connect as a service. Our Oracle server is localhost. Our port number is 1521, so we'll continue the default. Now our service name is Hub 961, which matches our TNS name. And our connection URL looks good, so we don't need to make changes. Now here's where we put in the name of our ORS. So I'll say demo_ORS, that's the name we'll use. And I'll enter the password for that ORS. And here we choose the localization for the schema itself, and I'm going to stick with the default of English. The DBA username remains sys. And I'll enter the password. And we're going to use the default tablespace names for the MDM tablespaces, as well as the Oracle temp. All right, so now it's going to create our ORS user, as well as an empty schema on our Oracle server. Going to set up a little bit of security, and we're completed. Now, I can confirm that a couple of different ways. One way is that this sipant generates a log file. So I can open that up, and you'll see it lists the parameters that I entered, as well as the steps that were created. And it looked like everything succeeded. So that looks good. The other way I can confirm it is using a SQL utility. In this case, I'll use SQL Developer, and I'll create a new connection from one of my existing connections. So we'll use demo ORS, and we'll enter the password. We'll hit test, and that was successful, and we'll hit connect. So we have the user and schema in place. And if I look at the tables, you'll notice it's currently an empty schema at this point. So that is the first step. We've created the ORS. Now I'm going to go back to the command window, and we're going to execute sipant. And this time we're going to do import ORS. And this is going to import what the documentation refers to as the seed, or the system tables, or the starting point for the operational reference store. So again, we have to enter the commands, or the parameters, to our ORS. So we're going to stick with Oracle and a service, localhost, default port, and hub 961, hub 961. Connection string looks correct, as does the URL. All right, schema name. So here's where we enter demo ORS along with the password we used to create it. Stick with the default locale. Now, here's another new feature of version 9.7. As you're creating the ORS, you can set what's called the timeline granularity. And the timeline is a feature that was introduced in version 9.5 that allows you to basically track the history of a record. And you can post-date and predate changes to a record once you enable the timeline functionality on a particular base object. Now, in previous versions, the timeline granularity, and you'll see the default value here is 3, went down to the day. Now, with version 9.7, you can go down to the second, so you can maintain those timeline dates down to the second now. So I'm going to go ahead and utilize that. So we'll use down to the second for this ORS. And I'll talk more about timeline granularity in a future video. Now, you'll see it's connected to our ORS and it's creating those tables. And if you've ever looked at an ORS directly through the database, you'll recognize the C repos and C repar tables. And those are, as I described earlier, basically system tables that Informatica MDM uses to keep track. Because remember, in this operational reference store, we not only have our master data, but we have all of our contributing data as well as the configuration of our MDM solution. So you'll see these system tables getting created, security being set up, and some initial values entered into some of those tables. So now we've completed the import of the system tables, or the seed. Again, I can confirm that the same two ways. So I can go back to the log file. You'll see now it's quite a bit bigger. So we can take a look in the log file, and it does continue to append to itself. So you'll see the create ended and the import started. And we could go through here and see the details. I'm just going to kind of skip down to the end here and see that everything seems to be done successfully. The other way I can confirm that, again, I can return to my SQL utility, in this case SQL Developer. I can hit refresh, and now I can see those system tables in the ORS. Now, we're ready to add the ORS to our hub configuration. So I'm going to go back to the hub console, go back to the databases, grab a right lock. We're going to add the ORS. We'll enter similar parameters, so it's an Oracle database. We're going to connect via a service. I'll call this demo, and we'll use localhost. Hub 961 is the service, default port. Hub 961 as the TNS. Then we'll put in the name that we used to create it and the password. We'll hit next. We can do a quick test, make sure we've got our connection parameters in there correctly. And the test succeeded, so now we can hit finish. So it's registering our ORS with our hub. So now you'll see we have the ORS listed. And I can go down here to the schema viewer and connect to that ORS. And we can see now that we have basically an empty ORS so that we can begin configuring Informatica MDM. So that is the 2 steps involved in creating the ORS and then finally adding or registering the ORS with our Informatica MDM hub. Thank you very much.